Big businesses will always ask, what is the ROI? What is the price for a deal, even with public pressure swaying in the opposite direction? For the WWE and Vince McMahon, will they continue to accept blood money from the Saudi Arabian government? A 10-year deal was signed with the Saudis back in March that will pay them roughly $450 million. Recently, the WWE announced their second Saudi event, Crown Jewel. Then this happened.
The mystery deepens tonight over the fate of Jamal Khashoggi. Did the Saudi royal family have him murdered? Khashoggi was already living in self-imposed exile, afraid he'd be arrested in the Saudi kingdom because of his fierce criticism of the country's de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
There was another wrinkle indicating the Saudis' involvement as well.
Khashoggi, a Washington Post contributor and outspoken critic of the Saudi regime, entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey on October 2nd, but has not been seen since. The Saudis have insisted he left on his own.
A critic of the kingdom was assassinated, which brings us back to the WWE. Sports Illustrated reported members of the talent roster are uncomfortable performing in Saudi Arabia, especially given the nation's poor record with human rights. Not only is the WWE turning a blind eye to murdering journalists for dollars, but they are propagandizing an area of the world as progressive. Would a progressive nation bomb weddings on their impoverished neighbors, which the New York Times called the worst humanitarian crisis? Would a progressive nation threaten Canada with another 9/11? Would a progressive nation still disallow LGBTQ rights and deem gay men and women illegal? The propagandization of women driving was eaten up by major media outlets. However, largely unreported were the activists who fought for female drivers. Will they remain in jail? The WWE claims to fight for human rights, specifically from Stephanie McMahon. Because of all you men and women using your voices for change, we are able to provide the platform that women can do anything and be anything they want to be, even promoting an all-women's pay-per-view. WWE views itself as championing women's rights unless the bottom line is affected. Female WWE superstars will not be performing at this year's Saudi Arabia event. A huge red flag because the WWE is promoting Saudis' gender segregation. The kingdom continues its mandate of fleeing women returning to the country, male guardianship wherever a woman goes, and the country even controlling women's cell phones. That's when the WWE sent out their puppets for damage control, starting with Randy Orton.
I think you should go. I think the only way to help with change over there is to go and not to cancel the trip. Our girls performed in Abu Dhabi not too long ago. Yeah. And I think we'll be there eventually with Saudi.
Funny, these talking points sound eerily similar to former wrestler John Bradshaw Layfield.
My personal opinion is that they should go. I think the only way you promote change, look at what we did with Cuba. You isolate a country, all you do is impoverish that country. You want to promote change. WWE went to Abu Dhabi. They had the first women's match that had ever happened in the Middle East. The crowd was chanting in English, "This is change."
While it is true, wrestlers were in Abu Dhabi, that was in 2017. Layfield and Orton are misleading the facts to paint the McMahon Empire as pioneers. The Glamour Girls' 1985 WWF Women's Tag Team title win the officially billed as having taken place in Cairo, Egypt, a long ways away. While the WWE says it continues to monitor the situation, the company disallowed its broadcasters from mentioning Saudi Arabia by name in wake of Jamal Khashoggi. From the Saudis' perspective, displaying a strong implementation of a new regime pays off for political gain. Take, for example, Russia, pre- and post-Olympics under Vladimir Putin.
But immediately after, he started war against Ukraine.
Before the Olympics, his popularity rating in Russia had been falling steadily for years. But when the games began, this.
Saudi Arabia and Prince Mohammed bin Salman have studied the playbook for positive press and promotion of a thriving society and executing it to a T, even if lives are lost. Vince McMahon and the WWE, meanwhile, would reportedly lose roughly $16 million if they pull out. To the head of the WWE, that's all that matters. Vince doesn't live in the real world. He just finds the real world an annoyance because he lives in the world he controls, and this didn't happen. Nobody died in his world, you know. He died in our world, but not his, as in Vince McMahon's world. That sounds a lot like this.
But as to whether or not we should stop $110 billion from being spent in this country, knowing they have 4 or 5 alternatives, 2 very good alternatives, that would not be acceptable to me.
And who sits in Trump's cabinet holding the title as administrator of the Small Business Administration? That would be Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon. The intersection of politics and sports empowers the wicked while doing away with the morality of circumstances. The WWE has chosen to be the Saudis' prop for a mask of change while turning a blind eye to what lies underneath. If you made it to the end of this video, mazel tov. If you want to see more, hit the bell and hit subscribe. Why don't you?